We now are at the third part of our demo to configure a game plan. Click the Game Plan tab. Let me start from a tutorial. The tutorial that we want to demonstrate shows how to get the expected performance of quarterly selecting the best 50 long with matched 50 short positions from the current S&P 500. Best implies we are looking for optimal portfolios over 30 plus years. How much will those quarterly optimal portfolios improve over the quarterly historical results of the S&P 500 during these past years? That question we are going to answer. Go back to the Data Collection tab to check whether the tutorials are loaded. Here we are. Here is the tutorial section and they indeed are loaded. Otherwise click Load, we'll do that anyhow, and go back to the Game Plan tab. Now load the tutorial of choice in the upper drop box. All tutorials start with a T plus a double colon. So here is the drop box, here is T double colon S&P 500, which is our tutorial of choice. I click it and the tutorial is loaded. After loading it, study the entries in the 6 sections: screening rules and ranking, risk reduction, watchlist details, watchlist filters, backtest and validation period, and the stocks summary. I now go quickly over the entries in the 6 sections. First, the screening. DigiFund Manager allows you to screen for 5 different types of historical stock data that will show to be influential on risk and rewards. Here they are: trading liquidity, historical share price, adjusted share price, maximum drawdown, and trend. It is simple to configure the screening to your own choices. First, set the range of the 5 screened entries, and you do that over here in the center. Then consider ranking the required number of stocks in the range, and you do that here. Let me give an example on screening on trends. Activate trend. Set the range of the trend, for instance, between a slope of minus 59% and plus 74%, and rank the required number of stock in the range as the bottom 51, top 51, and increase 51 at least to a number that is equal to the portfolio size or larger. The portfolio size is 100 stocks. Finally, set the number of weeks over which your trend is measured. That's done over here, and you can set it to any number. That finishes the setting of the screening rules. Now turn to ranking. You can rank on fallers and climbers. You do that over here. And select whether you want to rank by only short correlation times, which you do over here, or by long and short correlation times, which you pick here. You can set the short correlation time equal to the holding period, which is 13 weeks. If you do that, the long correlation time takes on the value of twice the short correlation time. Then we move down to the section on risk reduction, which involves quite a few input entries. You have to size the portfolio, you have to size the holding period, you have to size longevity or activated, and when it is activated you can size it by varying the number of weeks. Also, you have to define whether you want to trade long, short, or long short. Now, if you trade long short, you have to set the short long ratio. The short long ratio sets the part of the value of the long portfolio that will comprise the value of the short portfolio. That value is somewhere between 0 and 100% and can be set to any of those numbers. Then you have to decide whether you want the price weighting to be based on historical prices or based on adjusted share prices. Finally, you have to decide whether you want estimating weighting or not. If you want estimated weighting, you have to set the investment objective, either to minimize risk, maximize rewards, or minimize the risk-reward ratio. When estimated weighting is involved, you have to define the setup period. Now, the setup period starts at a given date, which is set here at February 1st, 1985. You also have to define the length of the setup period, which is defined here as 9 holding periods. Then the end date is calculated as May 1st, 1987. For very large portfolios, you may choose your interval to be larger than one holding period, and you can set it then by 10 to decrease the CPU time. Finally, you have to choose your estimation weighting technique. You can choose between first long then short or rank by rank, which usually works a little better for larger portfolios. Larger means larger than 2,000 stocks. Next, we go over the watchlist details and filters. You can select any watchlist from the loaded watchlist, for instance, the Microsoft. You can also choose the general watchlist. And finally, you can choose to include stocks that have become inactive during your license period. Then there's the summary here of the stocks selected, and here you can set the watchlist filters by sector. So if you want to exclude the financial sector or the capital goods sector or the technology sector and the utility sector, just unclick all those sectors. You can also choose to trade only on Nasdaq, for example. If you want to do that, just unclick the other exchanges. Finally, I explained the validation period and the backtest section, and will press Run. Here is the validation period. It starts minimally at the end of the setup period, which was May 1st, 1987. The end date is maximally the end date of the database, which is 21st of February 2018. So you can decrease this date and increase this one here. Now, you also have to define the investment per stock. The investment per stock always has a maximum value. The maximum value is the minimum, 1% of the minimum average trading liquidity, which is set here at $1.5 million. So 1% of that is $15,000, which is the maximum, but you can put down there any number lower than that. If you put in a larger number, you immediately get a warning which may indicate that the condition for perfect competition is being breached. Now, the initial capital required is the investment per stock times the number of long positions, which is 50. So you end up with here with an initial capital required of $750,050. You have to choose your benchmark, either the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And finally, you can activate or deactivate whether you want to estimate the worst run, the best run, or the default run when the holding period is larger than 1 week. You have to set then the investment objective, and you take as investment objective the same objective as you have set for your estimated weighting. If your estimated weighting is deactivated, you freely can set your investment objective, for instance, to maximize your reward. Now finally, you find here the overview of the broker and tax settings, and here you find the stock summary of your database. This finalizes the third part of the demo. Thank you.